Welcome to the Achilles Community, where men gather to master their physical and mental health. Welcome to the first episode of the Achilles Community podcast. In this episode, I'm interviewing Master Healer Jeffrey Vincent Noble. He is the founder of the Noble Touch, a community of healers that I've been a part of for the past 10 years, committed to holistic healing. Master Jeff has dedicated his life to healing as both a teacher and practitioner of pranic healing, NLP, and a multitude of other healing modalities. Interviewing Master Jeff for the first episode of our podcast was a deeply meaningful experience for me because I wouldn't be here without him. He is a dear father, mentor, and friend. In this episode, we discuss Jeff's relationship to being a man in what is a largely women-dominated healing community, his protocol for transcending human ego and living in the divine self, and how he has transformed the obstacles in his life into opportunities. I hope you enjoy our conversation and use the gems in it to benefit your life. For those interested in connecting with or learning more about Jeff and the Noble Touch, please check them out at thenobletouch.com. Master Healer Jeffrey Vincent Noble. So when I started working with you, one of the things that led me into the work that I'm doing now, which is like really focused on really healing with men, is when I started working with you in the Noble Touch, I realized that in a lot of the spaces that we were in, there weren't a lot. And even in the Noble Touch, there have always only been a handful. A lot in the background, but in terms of servicing, only like a couple. So what has your experience?
It's my Achilles heel. The men don't come out.
So that's really where I want to start the conversation is what has that been like for you as a practitioner in the field as well as a leader in the field?
It's been kind of hurtful, actually. I always wanted to have a group of men that would go out there and do this healing in the communities, but the men just don't come out that much. So it's been kind of hurtful. I had to kind of get used to it and just be able to just continue to move through it, because I can get stuck in the fact that where's the men? And then start, hassling the men to come out, and that's just going to make them not want to come out. So instead, I just invite them, gently to come out. We need your help. We need you to serve. We need you to be an example. And some come out, some still don't come out. I mean, we have more men than most people think that have been certified. But once again, the ones that come out and do the work. Now, they'll say they're doing it on their own, but I don't even know if that's true or not, to tell you the truth. I just know that they don't come out. It used to disturb me a lot more than it does now.
And why is it so, where is that emotion even coming from? Like, why does it matter to you so much to get men out serving in the way that the Noble Touch does?
Manhood, to me, is about serving also. Women are not the only ones that's meant to serve. Men are meant to serve also. So manhood, to me, part of manhood is serving, is being part of the community, as seeing the community grow. And if you're not out there doing it, then, then what are you doing? I'm not trying to be judgmental, but I'm just saying that we need to be seen as much as everybody else is being seen out there. And people have more respect sometimes when they see the men involved in things that are normally, should I say, slated for women, or I think only women do. When men become, and plus it adds a dynamic to it. It adds the balance, it adds the yin and the yang. It adds both the balance to it. With just one energy there all the time, it's not the same time in both. And men can nurture also. This is a belief that men don't know how to nurture. We can't be soft, we can't be gentle, we can't be loving. That's a feminine, female energy that's needed to heal. Everybody doesn't need a female energy to heal. Some people need a kick in the butt. And that's the male energy. So it was hurtful to me because maybe hurtful not the word, disappointing would be a better word. Because I poured into the men a lot also. And I can say though, my greatest joy, I'm not sure if you were there that day it was just all men healers. Were you there that day?
Online?
No, we were at a fair, only men healers. Oh yeah, we were there, only men healers. There was like 6 of us, and we had a good time. We had a lot of fun. We talked about men, and we had one younger guy there, so it's like we all kind of surrounded him and built him up also. That was probably one of my greatest times healing out of all this time when all the men were together.
What do you think makes it difficult, or what are some of the obstacles that prevent men from being involved in healing the way that you would want?
Commitment. It's really that simple. You can make any excuse you want to make up, but if you're really committed in something, you'll find a way to do it. So it's the fact that they're not committed. Also, it's more work than they think it's going to be, probably. They think you just wave your hand over someone and they heal, but it's more, doing pranic healing is work. Sometimes it can be an hour and a half on people. And then again, it's that ego that gets involved sometimes. People, they want to be, they don't see themselves serving another male. It's okay to do it in certain situations. Go to a job, you got a male boss, that's okay. But situations like this, sometimes I can tell it's more of an ego thing also, where they don't want to serve under, quote, under another male. But I don't have that kind of attitude. I don't really, to me it's like we. Like I always tell people, the Noble Touch is not about Jeff Noble. How many times have you heard me say that? It's about the healers. So I don't really care about that. I just want men to come to something that we have a place in this transforming of the energy in this planet. That we have a place a real place and a responsibility to be part of it. And we can't sit back and let someone else do it, and then we complain when stuff doesn't happen. It doesn't work for me. So men don't have, I'm sorry. So to me, men don't really have an excuse, they make an excuse.
Have there been, as I'm wondering if, specifically most of the Noble Touch's work is within the Black community. Do you feel like Black men are taught something uniquely in terms of service, or is there an obstacle that you feel like is unique to Black men in terms of servicing other people?
Not that I know of. If there is, I'm not aware of it.
And is there something in the general mythology of men that were taught to not serve others?
I've never been taught not to serve, so I don't know what other people were taught.
Okay.
I've never been taught not to serve. I've been serving from teaching martial arts and everything else. Yeah, from teaching martial arts and everything else, teaching people how to swim since I was young. So I've always been in a service mode. I don't think we didn't call it service then. When I'm teaching martial arts, I didn't say I was serving, being of service. I was just teaching martial arts. When I teach people to swim, I didn't think I'm serving, but once I'm just teaching people how to swim. So I think that I don't know that there is such a thing. I'm not sure. I don't feel there's any limit or any expectation put on you to serve.
And as a practitioner through the field of healing and wellness, I would assume that you're one of the only men in the spaces similar to myself. Is that true for your experience as well?
In what spaces specifically?
Has there been a difference between NLP and pranic healing in terms of gender in the space?
There's obviously more men in pranic. In NLP, definitely. That's in pranic healing, yeah.
And so in the spaces of pranic healing where you were the only man, and then also and within the Noble Touch, going out and being the head, one of the head figures of the Noble Touch as a man, and the most of the people within the Noble Touch are women. What has that been like for you in terms of any difficulties that you've had to face?
I don't know any difficulties. Besides people coming up and my biggest difficulty is people coming out and showing up and doing the work. That's my biggest difficulty. Other than that, dealing with women, dealing with men, I enjoy a person, period. I'm looking at, there are gender differences, but there's also spiritual commonalities. So what I look at is the spiritual commonalities, and that's what I teach to, that's what I work to, that's what I heal to, the spiritual commonalities. If there's a divinity in you, whether you're male or female, have a male or female organ, and there's a divinity in me, let's get all the other stuff out the way, and the divinity in me work with the divinity in you. And that's the way I think about it.
For men who feel stuck in the ego or the identity of being a man that blocks them from their divinity, that non-binary divinity, what would you say to men to help them get into touch with that?
Well, I think that first of all, they have to realize that they are a child of God, the creator, whatever you want to call this spiritual energy in the universe. And it's hard for people in general to recognize that, because they don't allow themselves to experience it. There's this balance going on in life between divinity and humanity. People always say we're spiritual beings having a human experience. Yeah, that sounds good, but it's cliche. What does it actually mean? How do you actually balance that difference between the two? And a lot of people don't balance it because they don't try to balance it, because they are so stuck in this third dimension or in this 3D world right here that they don't think about it. There's so much chatter going on inside their head, and then there's disturbance from the media. There's so much stuff coming from all over the place that people don't sit quiet. The Bible somewhere says, be still and know that I am God. But if you're not meditating, you're not being still. Then you do try to meditate, what happens? You hear all these voices and everything else going. You say, oh, I just can't meditate. So you give up too soon. How often have you done that in life when you give up too soon? It's the same type of thing. And that goes for men and for women. Men may be a little different. They may give up quicker sometimes. But we just have this hardness about us. And it's not just a man. It also depends on the environment the man grew up in also. I grew up in an environment that was very hard. You had to be tough. You had to be strong. You couldn't do anything. You couldn't show any weakness at all. You couldn't cry, anything. So I had to break through all those barriers to begin to open up that spiritual portal to allow the divinity to come in. But as long as you can't be vulnerable, then you're blocking the spiritual energy from coming in.
Can you describe some of your process that you went through to break down those barriers?
Well, first of all, you gotta make a decision that you're not going to accept being a product from your environment, of your environment, but a product from your environment. Because I could have easily accepted, like, say, listen, mother raised 4 kids in Harlem, projects, blah, blah, blah. I could have easily accepted that narrative. But I decided to change my narrative very young. Well, I don't know whether I was very young, but I was in my teenage years. I decided I was not going to be a victim, and I was not going to be have a victim mentality the rest of my life. So I decided to begin to start studying things outside of things that I learned in school. And that's when you start getting into this personal development type things, the self-help type things. All those things that I felt I needed to move me out of my environment, per se. So some of the things you go through, just start taking workshops. Start really being reflective. People always say, I know myself, I know. Very few people know themselves, really know themselves. They may know the surface of themselves, but that dark night of the soul that kicks in sometime, they don't know that until it kicks in. And then they don't know how to handle it, so they go to drugs, alcohol, and everything else to try to handle that dark night of the soul when it kicks in. So for me, it's a matter of being able to just slow down, meditate, do a lot of self-reflection, be honest with yourself, decide to be vulnerable, decide that, you know what? So what if I cry? I don't mean I'm a punk, because I know I can fight. You know, I got 100 karate trophies, so I know I can fight. So it's okay for me to cry. You know, and it was hard to get okay to cry because I was raised that you shut up, boy. Shut up. You better not shed one tear. My father used to tell me all the time. So you were afraid to cry. And you grew up that way, and then you have to start saying, you know what? It's hard too. The first time you want to cry, it's like you're scared to cry still, because you're still programmed not to cry. So it's hard to break through, but I came through meditation, self-reflection, looking at things and being able to just have compassion for other people also. Compassion for situations that you had nothing to do with, but you can look at something and feel their pain almost. And then not to just feel it, but to be able to experience it and process it out through the tears. So there's a number of different, it was not one process, it was a number of different things that I went through to be able to get to the point now where I'm okay. I'm okay with being vulnerable. I'll tell you, I'll tell you my weakness. I tell jokes about myself and how effed up I was. I don't mind all that stuff now. But back then I would have never done it. So it's a slow process of getting to know you and getting to know that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say yes to things and say okay to say no to things, and to know that you're not going to satisfy everybody no matter what you do. Some people are going to like you, some people are not going to like you. I don't care how much you try. There are people who will like you and there are people who won't like you. You guys just say, well, you know what? I'm just going to be myself. I think that's the most important thing to do, is be audaciously authentic. And once you get to that point, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. Then you're walking in your divinity. When you're trying to please this person, trying to please that person, you're not being yourself. You're trying to fit in and conform. And that's the way most people live their life. That's why we were all born originals. We always hear me say this, you're born an original, but don't die copying. Because we're copying other people. All of our life, that's what we're doing. Most people.
Another one that you taught me a while back was to be a wandering generality or a meaningful specific.
Right. Yeah, whether you're wondering. Yeah, wondering generality. Another one that I like now is You're the Masterpiece. They got all these great artists, Da Vinci and Matisse and Van Gogh. They threw some paint on the wall. It's worth $15 million. But those are called masterpieces. And they won't make another one like that because you can't throw paint on the wall at the same time twice. However, we've come from the Creator. We are loaded and coated with the divinity in us. Just a matter of us being able to tap into it on a regular basis. Not once in a while by mistake, not when something happens, but can you access it on a regular basis or a near regular basis where you can feel that divinity in you, operate up out of that. Because when you do, you automatically become audaciously authentic because you realize that you are the master's piece. There won't be another Nick. There was no Nick before you, not going to be a Nick after you. There's only Nick right here, right now. And there are people that are waiting for Nick that Jeff Noble can't help, but Nick can. There are people that you are the answer to their prayers. You know, when you get that you're the answer to someone's prayer, so we're all here to be of service. So who are you supposed to serve? Who has the universe already laid out for you that's waiting for you to come and serve them? Because Jeff can. Jeff's personality and their personality is not going to match. But Nick's personality and their personality is going to match. Nick's soul and their soul may match. My soul and their soul may not match. Because you may have been in conflict at another time.
I'm wondering specifically in the service of the context of the Noble Touch, if I know you mentioned also that in the NLP space there was more men, and then in the pranic healing space there was more women. What needs to change about whether it's the general dialogue of what healing is? What do you think needs to change for more men to enter the space of healing, to start engaging in that process that you described that you went through?
The commitment. It's all about commitment and values. People live their life based on what they're committed to, what they believe, and that's based on your values. So for men to do that, men just got to decide that, you know what, I want to be part of this. I'll give you a perfect example. This has nothing to do with healing, though. My daughter, right? And this is what happens to men sometimes, and I'm saying I'm guilty of this. My daughter, she was going to a school. I did not like the school. I thought there was just not a good school for her. Her mother thought the school was a great school for her because it was a women's club. All the mothers got together, they did things together, and the men was kind of pushed aside, literally pushed aside. The women would actually go out and go to parties, do everything together, and the fathers that were there were kind of pushed aside, like we didn't matter. Only the mothers matter because they know how to raise the kids, and we don't. And what men will do, men will fall back and say, okay, go ahead and do it then. And I'm guilty of the same thing. I said, okay, go ahead. Y'all go ahead and do your thing with my daughter. And they did. And I think my daughter would have been a better person if I had stayed involved. My daughter would have been a better person if I stayed involved. But I took my hands off and let the mother handle it because it's easier to step out of it than to engage in it full time and to be there. And sometimes with other things that happen in life, men will do the same thing. It's easier for us to go to default to what we're comfortable in than to be uncomfortable learning something new and doing something new. And I can see the difference between my friend Gene, his daughter, his wife tried the same thing, but Gene didn't go for it. Gene stayed engaged, and I can see the difference.
What's the difference that you see?
There's a lot, the closeness between him and his daughter is a lot different. The way his daughter speaks, the way his daughter moves, the way his daughter talks, the confidence that his daughter has is totally different than what my daughter has. Because he's just stayed there all the time, was an active part of every aspect of her life.
What's something you would have told yourself to get yourself involved?
Oh, I'll tell Jeff Jeff, that's what you asshole. No, Jeff, you got too much. You have too much information, too many tools, too many gifts. Just sit there and let her take charge of the way your daughter's formed. You should be involved 100% because you have everything. You have not everything that she needs, but you have a lot more information about things that you've learned over the years than her mother does, that you can instill in her, that you may be able to help her become more confident, more bold, more, just more courageous, have more, less fear and everything else, and feel really, really good about herself. I could have added that to it. And that's what I would tell Jeff. You're just a jerk. You can't walk away from this and say, okay, you want to raise her the way you want to raise her. You can't do that, Jeff. You're responsible. That's your seed. That's what I would tell Jeff that.
And I see that in the way that you relate to, I know the way that you relate to me as your student and the way that you relate to your student as a whole is very much like your children. Did that experience influence you as a teacher?
I don't know. I can't tell you. I've never thought about that before, so I don't know if that influenced me as a teacher or not. I think I didn't even know I was a good teacher, to tell you the truth. I think I evolved as a teacher. I always like to share. And I just hate seeing people, I always wanted people to just be good at whatever they would do, period. I always want them to be good. And I always want them to not, let's see, I could easily sit back and use excuses and accept the mediocrity and say, oh, I'm black in America, there's racists here, and use every excuse in the world to accept mediocrity and failure in my life. And I didn't. So if I didn't do it, I'm not letting my students do it. I'm not gonna let you do it either. If my students, I know, you know how I am with my students, I don't let them do it. I'm very tough on them, but I love them. I truly love them that way too. So I'm not doing it because I'm mean, because I was told I was mean lately. But I'm not mean, but it's tough love sometimes. Now, I try to be nice a couple of times, but if you're not responding to my being nice, it's time for me to try something else. And that's when I can become a little, not meaner, just a little harsher about, a little more forceful about doing things. Because people don't realize their potential. That's my whole thing. I didn't realize my own potential. When you start developing it, then you start seeing other people. And the more you develop your own, like if you're a martial artist. So if you saw a martial artist just starting, the more you develop your own talent in martial arts, you can see someone else that has the talent. That's the way it's for me in personal development. The same exact thing in personal development. I can see the person's talent to become a lot more than they are. And to me, if I can see it's what God is showing me their talent. So if God is showing me their talent, it's my responsibility, as long as they're open, for me to help develop and nurture that talent. So they can make a difference in the world. They can be a beneficial presence on the planet.
Throughout your lifetime, what were some of the other ways that you had to change your behavior to be a man? You were described like you had to get hard. Like, what are some of the beliefs that came along with that?
The same ones I mentioned. You had to be hard, you had to be tough, you can't cry, you can't show weakness, you can't be afraid, you have to be able to face anything, just go after it. I mean, there are people put guns to my head, one to my chest. One to my chest, and one just put his hand on his gun back when I was a kid. And I didn't back down. I was like, what you gonna do? You're gonna shoot me. Cool, right? I'm telling you, gotta shoot me, you guys gotta go ahead and shoot me. Because I was, I had to be tough. Look him in the eyes, go ahead and shoot me. I've had that happen twice. Of course, no one ever shot me, thank God. But just that toughness, you gotta show that toughness, because sometimes when you show the toughness, the other person may back down. But then again, they may not back down. So you take a chance when you do that. You don't think you're taking a chance when you're doing it, but you got your friends behind you, so you gotta man up. There's a lot of manning up back then. Now I don't have to man up. If someone came to me now and said people tried to rob me, I used to always fight. No one's ever robbed me. I had to always fight. Because once again, I couldn't show I was a punk. I couldn't show I was afraid. You go to school, you got the bullies. Then you want to fight the biggest bully. If you beat the biggest bully, everybody's gonna leave you alone. And that's happened too. I said, just give me, whoever's the toughest, that's the one I want to fight. Just give me who's the gang leader? Let me and them fight. So you have to do all those things, but that was just same thing, just toughen up, being, scared as hell, without letting anybody know you're scared. You cannot show you cannot show fear. Fear is a sign of weakness.
Do you see a relationship between the teaching style and the tenacity that you have toward helping students and just helping people in general manifest their potential and be their fullest selves as you see it? There's a kind of tenacity or tough love almost that you have in the way that you do that. Do you see any connection, or I'm wondering if the toughness or the hardness that you develop through martial arts, through your upbringing, through that experience, how the two are connected, if at all, if you see it that way?
I think that I think of the students, it's the tough love, but it's also the competitiveness. I think my competitiveness from the martial arts has spilled into everything I do. Not necessarily toughness, but definitely competitiveness. I want my students to be the best, period, point blank. I don't be able to put my students up against any other students and say, I got the best students, and know my students are the best students, period, point blank. So I think it's more the competitiveness has gone through even more so than the hardness or the toughness that I've had. Yeah, I can still be tough, but I can also be very loving, but I'm always somewhat competitive. I always want my students to be the best. I'm just being honest, I want them to be the best. Right. So I think the competitiveness went through more so than the toughness have.
I know just over about 10 years since I've known you, that competitiveness or toughness or hardness that you have as a teacher has changed a lot. Where I remember in the beginning, you were a lot more like a martial arts instructor, where like you really didn't care so much about, you always cared about how we were feeling, but there was a little bit more roughness there, more strictness, more discipline.
You sound like Alberta.
Right. No.
You sound like Alberta.
And I remember that's something that Alberta and I both appreciated about you because we come from a martial arts background. But I also know that you've gotten a lot of pushback, and you've been given a lot of feedback by a lot of other people within the Noble Touch to be a little bit softer, to be a little bit kinder, to be a little bit more compassionate. But you're still connected to that tenacity.
Oh.
So what was that like what did you have to go through internally? What was that process like to transform in the way that you did?
The process of self-awareness once again. Being able to get ready to say something, catch yourself, self-mastery. The process was like, and I'm not saying I'm fully self-mastered, but being able to see when you're going somewhere that you don't need to go, and ask yourself the question, okay, what's this going to get you? Is there another way to get? As opposed to just coming at people like, boom, just asking yourself, is there another way to get that same response without being so hard on the person? So it's not that it's changed, my approach to it has changed, but I still have the same tenacity, saying I want you to be the best, but my approach to it has changed because my process was being able to go inside once in the middle of something and not be triggered the way I was triggered before. So disconnecting the triggers I had before that would make me come at someone pretty hard, and being able to sit back and say, okay, what's this going to get you? What's this going to solve? Just asking myself those type of questions that gave me a more empowered response to the person, as opposed to just a knee-jerk response to the person.
And have you seen do you see that your teaching has become more effective or efficient through this process?
I'll say I became more flexible. I think I've become more flexible. Where I have more, anytime you only have one way to respond to something, you're like a robot. If you have two ways to respond to something, you're in a dilemma. It's either this or that. When you come from three or more ways, then you're coming from personal power. So I think as my personal power has increased and my ability to reach people has increased because I have different ways of going at it now than I had before. I remember one of our students, Brian, one time said, you'll become the master of the metaphors. Because, I'll tell story after story after story until the person gets it. Whereas before, it's like, I done said it 5 times. You remember that, right? But now I tell the metaphors over and the metaphors come to me. It's like I'm just a vessel. And the stuff comes to me to say to people now that I've opened up instead of being so hard all the time. So people like Alberta accuse me of being softer now than I was before. It's not softer necessarily, it's just a different approach that looks softer because you're used to me hitting you in the head. So now I'm pushing you, but I'm still getting to the same place, just with a different technique.
I love that description that it's not necessarily that it may be seen as you're softer, but you're not actually soft there. You're just using a different approach. Can you speak more about that? Because I think the part of the one of the ideas or one of the myths about men is that we have to be hard, that we can't be soft. And then realistically, to protect ourselves, whether the environments we grew up in or the world that we walk through, we do need to be tough. We do need to know how to protect ourselves. But I think you're pointing to or speaking to a really interesting nuance of it's not necessarily about being hard or being soft. It's about achieving your goal or achieving the result. So can you speak to a little bit more about that?
The bottom line is results, period, point blank. If you're not getting the results that you want to get, you have to change your approach. Most people don't change their approach. They keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. For me, I've learned I knew it intellectually, but I didn't embody it. It's one thing to know something intellectually. A lot of people know things intellectually, but do you really embody it where it comes out of your pores, out of your cells when you're actually doing it? And that takes more bringing it from your head into your body. So it becomes a kinesthetic response as opposed to an intellectual response. So to do that once again, you just have to be aware. You have to be aware and take the time and sit down and imagine this happening. Sometimes you have to sit down and just imagine being that way. So you kind of create a future memory. So it does happen, your body say, in your mind says, well, how am I supposed to respond to it? Instead of going back to this old way, the martial arts way, you go to this softer way. Then if that don't work, you say, okay, well, that didn't work. Maybe I might try something in between. If that don't work, I'm going back to my hard way. And just being that flexible, the whole thing is behavioral flexibility. The most powerful people are the people that have the most behavioral flexibility. If you say no to me, how do I get a yes out of you? How does that excite me? So I said, oh, this is going to be fun now. And it's on. Then you have to be flexible about it. Same thing, you changing yourself that way. And you have to be gentle on yourself while you're going through the process. Some people are so self-critical of themselves when they're going through this process. They start second guess themselves sometimes. Well, should I be doing it this way? Or should I stick to my old way? Just be gentle. To me, everything has to come from a place of love. Now, of course, when I was in my 20s, I may have thought that, but as you grow older and you become closer to God, you begin, or the creator or the universe, whatever you want to call it, you begin to realize that it's the love that's the real key to healing, to happiness, to joy, to your own joy. I don't mean love from somebody loving you. I mean loving yourself and loving the process you're going to become who you're becoming, to be the person you're supposed to be on this planet and bring more light into the world. Because that's something I wonder. I said, well, we look at the stars and we wonder and we glare, wow, they're so beautiful. What the stars see when they look at us? If the stars have a consciousness, they look down at the earth, what do they see? Do they see the same brightness that we in awe about? Or do they see darkness? And I think about things like that. So my goal is to make sure that everybody that I touch is a star on earth. So when the star looks down, you see the same thing we look at when we're looking up.
You've definitely done that for me in terms of my ability to see and tap into that light, like what would make me a star or what makes me a star, and that energy of that, and the work that it takes to cultivate that light. And I think that's something that you definitely embedded in me at an early age, is like the work that it takes to get there.
You asked me a question I want to go back to. Sometimes I think men become complacent too easily. Because if you think about, even when I do marital counseling, it's been the female a lot of times want to push the envelope about what they want the man to do and become. And the men sometimes, I don't know why, I don't have the psychological studies or anything on why men seem to be more complacent about certain things. They want to just continue living their life the way they're living, a lot of men. But then there are those men who are very ambitious, always want more. But I think that to some extent, some men are just a little more complacent. Once they get in their groove, they want to stay in that groove. They don't want to shake it up too much. And they sure don't want to go inside themselves a lot of time and deal with themselves emotionally. There's a book out called Men Cry in the Dark. I've never read it, but I bought it, never read it, but I've always been intrigued about the title. I believe that's what happened to men. I believe men do cry in the dark. I know I've cried in the dark. I know other men have caught me crying in the dark. So I know men cry in the dark because we're not supposed to show our weakness. We think that's weak, vulnerability. And we don't want people to know that we're vulnerable and we're weak. So we go inside and we cry in the dark. I know about a brother recently that I heard about that he did the plant therapy and went in his house and closed his head and just sat there and cried. So I think that men become complacent more because they don't have to deal with the pain. Because we have pain that we've stuffed. And I did a speech recently called Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. And a lot of times us men, we bury our feelings. So we don't have to show them. And then it cuts off our communication. So now we're with a lady and we want to be with the lady, but at the same time, it's hard to be with her fully when you're not fully yourself. So they're getting, or you may want to be with the guys, today again. So the same thing though. How can you be with them fully if you're not fully yourself? You can't expect unconditional love if you don't unconditionally love yourself. So it all starts with being who you are. And that's the hardest thing, is to be who you are, period, point blank. Everybody's not going to like you. They're not going to like what you do or what you say. And you got to be okay with it. And if you love yourself enough, you can be okay with that. If you know the divinity is inside you, you just try and you have to do things to get it out of you. And you don't give a what people think or say.
How does somebody know that they are who they are? Like, how does somebody know that they are themselves authentically, as opposed to they are what they've been programmed to be or what they've been conditioned to be? Like, how does somebody know that they're a meaningful specific and not a wandering generality?
When you find your purpose, you're committed to your purpose. Whether or not are you just interested, or are you committed to find out who you are? And when you find your purpose, you will know, because then work don't feel like work anymore. Whatever you're doing, feel like you're just having fun. Feel like a joy. And that's how you know. What you're doing becomes effortless for you. No matter what the obstacles are, they're just effortless for you. Just keep going. You may run into obstacles, but that's just to toughen you up and to make you who you need to be on this journey. I mean, you know some of my journey stuff I went through with churches and everything else. Have you seen it stop me? No, right? It excites me more, because once again, it's not about me. When people realize it's not about them, but about how this vessel is going to be a service of people on this earth, then it's easy to walk in that. And the way you find that is just continue asking yourself the question, what am I here for? Who am I here to serve? And really wait for the answer. Don't think of your own answers. Sometimes you may have to ask it before you go to bed. If you wake up in the morning, the answer may be there, but you need to write it down or you're going to forget it. Because, that's the way it works sometimes. You don't write it down, you forget. So there's so many different ways to go about it. You go through meditation. You could be in a relationship. You got to learn that the Spirit of God is in everything. I knew I was going to marry my wife because I saw a little girl. I forgot how old she was. She must be about 8 years old. Kids that young, they're just honest. And they said something. She said, you should marry her. But you know what? Because my wife was very pretty. And she's pretty, you should marry her. But I didn't hear the voice of the girl. I heard the voice of God. So sometimes you look at an advertisement on the bus, and it's talking to you. But because you're so in your head about things, you don't get it. People have this Burger King belief in God, have it your way. They'll ask for God for something. They'll pray to the universe for something, or God, and then they wait for it the way they want to see it happen. And that's not the way it's going to necessarily happen. And if you're not open for whatever comes and being able to see the Spirit of the living God in everything, everybody, then you miss the boat sometimes.
And it sounds like that's the common thread through what you're all about and what you're trying to communicate is, if you're able to tap into that divinity within yourself and with others and just in life generally, to see God in everything, then that is a huge path towards living beyond the narratives and living beyond your ego, using these stories. Right.
But it's not a matter of you can tap into it. It's a matter of you recognize it. It's there. It's already there. It's that you have to recognize it and then say, okay, I accept. What? That's hard. That accept part is hard. There's a lot of responsibility comes with it.
Right. So the first part would be to recognize it, and then the second part is to accept it.
Because I think that everybody's seen it. You can't tell me sometime in your life before now you haven't seen a spark or something. You say, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah. And then you back away from it because it scares you. Because it comes with a lot of responsibility. A lot of responsibility. When you accept it, it's a lot of freaking responsibility. You remember the picture, right, with the light? Mm-hmm. Remember, I cried for 2 weeks after that. I cried for 2 weeks after that because I knew what that meant. It's like, okay, if I was trying to dodge it, we got you. You were talking, and that's what it meant to me. I mean, Jeff, you've been kind of dodging. You've been doing your thing, but you kind of, this is not, you're not doing enough. That's what that light meant to me. I'm not doing enough.
I'm really interested in this part. The first part being the acknowledgement or the recognition of it, and the second piece being the acceptance of it. Did you always have the recognition?
Nope.
What was your process in terms of recognizing God in everything and divinity and everything?
I think it's just me taking classes. Continue to study outside the box, read books. I was a mess in church. I was a mess. Because I was asking questions like, well, so how did God get here? Well, how come I couldn't just get here then? I said, well, who's this God? I never seen him. Where is he? I had all these type of questions, so I moved away from it. I had moved away from religion altogether for years. Because I just felt that they could answer my questions. So I've always been inquisitive, like most little kids are inquisitive. I was forced to go to church, so I was asked questions. So, it's a matter of being able to, first of all, wanting to. You got to want to be able to develop that, to to get in touch with God. It's one thing to say you want to do it and go read the Bible, but that's different than actually doing it. You know, I always tell people there's been more religious wars than anything else. Religion, to me, divides people. Spirituality brings people together. Now, I've gotten in trouble for saying that, but that's the way I feel. That spirituality brings people. When you realize that you are one with everything, I mean, I could tell somebody, I did an exercise one time. I would say, Nick, say I'm one with that picture and say it over and over again. Then say I'm one with Jeffrey, say it, and you'll feel a difference. Energetically, there's a difference when you say I am one with, you look at an object because the vibration, the frequency is different. So you feel different when you say that.
For people that are closed-minded, whether through the hiding behind science or being critically minded, for people that don't recognize and are closed to it, but maybe want evidence or proof, or like to be people that would want to be convinced, what's something that you would do to help somebody or convince somebody?
I stopped that. I don't worry about convincing people anymore. Right. This is not important to me to convince them. That's wasting my time. You know, if they're open, I can talk to them. If they try to prove to me I'm wrong, why waste my energy with you? Why do that? What's the purpose? So you can prove you're right. Your ego gets bigger because you challenged me and I couldn't fight you. I didn't get back. When I was of a lower frequency, I want to fight with it. I want to go back and forth. Now, first it seems to be open, I'll talk to them. If they're not open, I'll have fun. I may decide to have fun, just mess with them for the hell of it. But I don't walk away the way I used to walk away before, kind of disappointed because they didn't get it and I couldn't help this person. I'm not for everybody. I had to let that go, being for everybody. I thought I was going to heal the whole world. I could help every single body. Now, I believe I can. But the reality is I may not be able to help somebody else. You may be able to help them better than I can. I have to realize that and be open to that possibility instead of thinking that I have to do all the work. That's how I start. I have to do it all. But I have to do that. So I would say if it's someone that's skeptical, that hide behind science, stuff like that, hide behind the science. Go ahead. See what is it getting you? I don't know. I mean, you're breathing, but you're not thinking about it. Blood's pumped through your body, but you're not thinking about it. I mean, if I threw something at you, you would catch it. That's physics. I mean, how'd you know how fast to move your hand, where to stop your hand at? How'd you know when to close your hand to grab it? Isn't that all physics? And mathematics? So you tell me, what kind of science are you talking about? The placebo is almost as effective as the medicines are. So what science? I mean, when placebo can get 40% response and medicine gets 60% response, it's not that much of a difference. 10, 20% difference is not that big. So what is the science really as accurate as they say it is? I don't know. If you're flying a plane, you're trying to go to California from here, the plane's not, I mean, you know exactly where to go, a direct route, but plane's not on that route half the time. It may go off here because of the wind or whatever. It may come back on again, it may go over here because of other air traffic. What's science? Where is the real hard science? I'm not sure. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a genius when it comes to that. But when it comes to human potential, I can find that and maneuver that around. I'm not interested in science. I'm interested in results. So if you tell me NLP doesn't work or pranic healing doesn't work because you can't just do this and move people's energy, okay, you can believe that if you want to. But there are a lot of people that will tell you their life has changed because of NLP or pranic healing. So if you think that it's not going to work for you, fine, suffer. Or go through the way you have to go through it. I'm not fighting you anymore. I did that fight for years, trying to convince people. I've done that fight already. You go into a church, you're healing half the congregation, people get insecure about it and actually leave the church because it's not in the Bible. Come on, that's the science. The science now is the Bible all of a sudden. And this guy they're talking about, I'll say this person of Jesus Christ, spit on the ground and heal people. But what I do is crazy. I can't be bothered with that kind of science anymore.
And for people that do have the recognition, but aren't embracing that second step of accepting it, what are some ways that, and I'm sure there's a lot of people within the Noble Touch and a lot of students of yours, I know I was there for a long time and you kept kicking my ass until I got there. What are some ways that you try to get people or to help your students after they recognize the divinity and everything to really accept or to go through the challenge of accepting I forget what you described, the responsibility that comes with that.
How did you do it?
That's a good question. How did I accept the responsibility of my divinity? I couldn't escape the feeling that came with avoiding it. Like every time, I think through being your student and through having you really on me, and every time I would behave in a way that didn't accept or didn't live in my divinity, you would always remind me, you'd always say something about that. And that ingrained those moments in me, and it felt like a dishonoring of myself. It felt like a dishonoring of what I now recognize as ancestors and spirits and all of these other entities and beings. And the acceptance of it for me, I guess, became that's really the best way of describing it for me, is I recognize that there was an honor to the experience that I wanted to respect, and that every time I felt like I disrespected it, and I guess maybe that comes from like my martial arts background or my Italian background of family and respect being the idea of respect, and the practice of respect was embedded in me at a very young age, to recognize when there is a higher power or a higher authority or something or someone above you. And I think a lot of these words get, kind of tainted and
Above.
yeah, a lot of these words get tainted, but that's really what it comes down to for me, is this idea of respect and the recognition of what respect is and who deserves it.
And what worked for you may not work for somebody else. So you asked me to give you how you do that. There is no one way of how I do it. It depends on the individual. It really does. So I don't have a format. I don't have a template of how to do it. As a matter of fact, sometimes I don't even know how I'm going to do it. I just go with whatever's coming through me at that time. And like you said, sometimes I can be real tough, sometimes I can be loving, sometimes I can be in between. Sometimes I say, Nick, you talk to them. Because they may hear it different from you than they're hearing it from me, from a fellow student, from a peer. They hear it from me as the teacher. So there's no one way. There's no template for it. You try to create a template, you're not going to fit everybody into that template. If you're flexible, you'll reach more people. Template going to reach only those people who fit into that narrow box you've created. But if you just be open to the flexibility and know that the gift in you will recognize and awaken the gift in them, then you'll reach more people.
So if the first one is a recognition of the divinity, and the second step is the acceptance of that divinity within yourself, is there a third step? Is there a third one after that?
You got to take action. They got to find a way that you have to be of service. I think everybody's purpose on the planet Earth, this is just Jeff Noble's theory, is that's to be of service. The question is how? What did you come to this earth loaded and coated with to share that you've been holding them back? You haven't pulled the trigger on yet. You haven't birthed yet. We talk about the physical birth, but there's also a mental birth also. When we have these ideas that's birthed in our mind, but we don't bring them to fruition, they don't go the whole 9 months, they don't go the whole year. They just kind of die somewhere along the way because of past conditioning or the fear of the unknown, the fear of success, the fear of rejection, the fear of not being good enough, not being smart enough, being black, the fear of that, I'm a black guy, it can't happen. Instead of looking at black as a way to create an environment for people to remember you, you create a black as an excuse to accept failure. And I'll give you a live example of that. When I started my first company, Quavers Press, I was 24 years old, had $400. And I worked for an all-white company before that. And I did really great with the all-white company. I had everything I ever dreamed of. From a boy from Harlem, I had everything I ever dreamed of. And then when I started on my own, I lost everything. So I went to the same clients of mine who were all white and worked for Fortune 100 companies and said, I'm starting my own business. Will you guys support me? They all said yes. So I think I got it made, right? I'm doing millions of dollars worth of business for this all white company. And now I'm saying about my own company, are you guys going to come? They say yes. None of them did. And that's how I'm losing everything I had. Because they made me these promises and they didn't answer phone calls or nothing. I would go into the office. I couldn't get past the secretary. It was really a bad time for me. It was a dark night of the soul. All right. But I said, okay, Jeff, so what you going to do? So what, now what? What you going to do about it? And then I said, well, I started using black as the shield, because I'm black. Say this because I'm black, and that's why they did that to me, blah, blah, blah. And whether that's true or not, doesn't matter. The reality is, how am I going to respond to it? And that's where people get lost at. Oh, I'm black, so that happened to me. They only did because I'm black. They're prejudiced. They didn't want me to have my own business. But if they're okay as long as I was working for a white company, but then I'm going to be my own boss, and they're older than me, like, well, I'm not support this little black kid. All that, it goes through your head. So I said, okay, so they're not going to deal with me. What are you going to do about it? So then I decided I'm going to go out there. And at first I put my name on my cards, Jeffrey Noble, President. I was so proud, Jeffrey Noble, President, Quavers Press. And I would go out, I would get, somebody so much older than me. And they say, how old are you, son? It's the kind of question they would ask me. So I went home and took my card, printed some more cards with my name without president on it, as if I was a salesperson. So that's how I got a way around that. And then once somebody said, well, who owns Quavers Press? Because when they talked to me, they knew I knew what I was talking about. So it's like, well, who really owns it? And I said, I own it. And they'll say, you own it, or are you fronting for someone? I'll say, well, how do you know that someone is fronting? I said, let me give you a lesson. I was kind of cocky back then. If you really want to know who owns the company, check out who's signing the checks. That's how you know who owns the company. Black or white, doesn't matter. Check out who's signing the checks. But anyway, what I did was I started saying, well, how am I going to make these people remember me? They see thousands of vendors per day. So I use being black as the way to make people remind me. So I use it to my advantage. I call them again. This is Jeff Noble from Quavers Press. I don't remember Quavers Press. Yeah, I'm the young black guy that came in to see you. Oh, yeah. So instead of using it as a crutch, I use it as a vehicle. Take me where I want to go faster. And then people remembered me. Whether they did business with me or not was one thing, but at least they remembered who I was in this whole scheme of all the vendors. Because sometimes they see 8 people a day. So in a week you're seeing 40 people, 30 people, whatever it is, 10 people even. You're not going to remember who everybody is unless they make an impression. I use my color to make the impression. So they remember who I was. So you can use black as an excuse or use black as a reason or an asset. You use it as a liability or an asset. And I chose to use it as an asset. And through life, you got to find out how to use everything as an asset. If you now accept the responsibility, recognize and accept the responsibility, now how are you going to bring that into the world? I mean, there are not too many black men that own an organization that's doing this kind of healing, period. That's an asset. I can sit back and say, well, I'm going to push everybody else out in front and I'm going to stay back. I want them to know. And to some extent, I do that, but not because I don't want them to know, but because I'm preparing for the next generation. I'm preparing for when I leave, or at least I don't want to do it anymore. They know Leslie. They know Yolanda. They know Elise. They know the people that's out there. It's unfortunate I don't have a guide. I would have much rather the guide, to tell you the truth, or at least a guide be in the mix. I was looking at you and Kadeem at one time, but y'all did your own thing, which is also an honor. To have my students out there doing their own thing, that's huge. That means more Jeffs, more stuff being spreaded. In the field, that's a little part of that. It humbles me. To know some of the things that you're doing, that other people, Brandon's doing, or other people are doing, it's because of things, and even Stacy. I heard that she was teaching the other day, and you can just hear, I wasn't here, but I heard that you can see everything I taught her, she was doing in the class. So then I'm doing my job. I'm being of service. I'm creating other little lights to go out there and make bigger lights. So the whole thing is, once you know what it is, you got to take responsibility and make it happen. You guys have to be an asset for you guys to say, how do I serve? How do I serve in a big way? How to make a difference? And then you don't know how to do it. You don't need to know how. You got to know why. And how to take care of itself. If you know why, what's your big why? how to take care of yourself. Just think about, just focus on why you want to do it, and get that emotion in your body, why you want to do it, and that emotion will take you everywhere you need to go, including over the obstacles. But the why has to be big enough. It can't be a why and then be like, well, I was going to get a loan and the money didn't come through. I mean, think about it. Maybe you knew this, maybe you didn't. We had a $5,000 grant from a politician. They took it back. That money was already spent. I went out there and purchased things based on that money. They took it back. So what now? What you gonna do about it? You gonna sit around and cry? You go out there and hustle. Yeah, hustle. Get the money in some other kind of way for that. Don't make excuses. Make a way to do it. A lot of people make excuses. That's the biggest. One of the biggest diseases known to man. And I remember I used to have it. I went to the doctor and they gave me this full examination, a blood test. But once they did the the brain scan, they found out what it was, and that was excusitis. I had excusitis. I had excuses for everything, and I can always, you can always hide behind the black people too. You always hide behind being black because you're being black. Easy to hide behind. That's you want to. Like I said, we're all spiritual beings having human experience. I have to fall into this black body. But hey, if I cut you, you're gonna bleed red. I'm gonna bleed red. So the way to do it, to go back for about the fourth time now, is to take responsibility and just begin to search for what do you love doing? What do you really love doing so much you would do it for free? When you get paid for it, it's a bonus. That's probably it. It's to serve. And sometimes it's not about making money. It could be being a great parent. It could be being a great, spouse for someone who is serving. Anyone that's serving at a certain level, to me, having a spouse that really supports them and understand what they're going through to some extent is definitely an asset. If you have a spouse that don't understand what you're doing, you understand how many times you hit your head against the wall or against these ceilings, how many obstacles you run into every day, how much self-doubt you may creep into you. Sometimes you just need them to say, hey, we got this. And a lot of people, and those things, they're little things, but they're so important to someone that's out there doing the work. Even if they're not doing this work, but doing whatever work they're doing, it's very important to have that support system, especially in your home.
Especially when you're out serving others, because all the focus is on other people.
Right.
So to have somebody to have your back and support you while you're supporting others is
nothing more than to be able, because when I do workshops sometimes, it's like you pour it all, because you teach, pour it all out. And you go back, and you feel yourself start coming down. There's nothing better than being able to come home or go somewhere where you can feel like you're being nurtured back to life. What you gave out is being back into you by each other without them losing anything on their own. If they're blessing you, they're going to be blessed because they're blessing you.
I can see so much of the work, the path that I'm on and the way that I'm on it. It really didn't even occur to me until this conversation that so much of the clarity of my path and my vision came from you standing in your divinity so clearly. Like these ideas of, if I'm healing, I'm not as much of a man. If I'm serving, I'm not as much a man, or all these ways, or even crying, like seeing you cry. You're definitely, like, off the top of my head, you're one of the very few men that I've seen cry just so easily and so effortlessly. I appreciate having you as a mentor and as a role model for all of these years.
Thank you. You came to us and you created my first dilemma. You didn't know that, but you created my first dilemma. Because when I started doing the healing, I never thought of a white person being involved. And the reason why I never thought of that was because every place I went, I was the only black person. So I'm like, well, they got their thing. Where the black folks at? So that created that need for me to make sure I had a black group of healers. Not out of me just wanting to be, but because I never seen us here. And I didn't feel comfortable there because I wasn't always accepted there. So I wanted to create a space where we can all be, where black folks can be accepted in the healing circle. So you came to me and you said that you wanted to train with me, and I remember saying to you, our class was full. And I said to you, well, it's training in New Jersey. You said, no, I want to train with you. And I said, well, then I think I said 2 or 3 times, there's a training come up in New Jersey. You go, no, I want to train with you. I said, but the masters are teaching over there. No, I want to train with you. So finally the space came open. It's like, okay, Jeff, now God is trying to tell you something. This is my first dilemma, because now I had to really think about breaking what I thought I was creating. I know you didn't know this, but I didn't know it. I had to think about breaking what I thought I was creating. And that's what I mean, being able to see God in everything. The feeling is that big, and we're all one and all that other kind of stuff. Then Jeff, what are you doing? If you deny him the ability to come in and work with you, God, then you're saying, oh yeah, almost all of us are one, unless you don't look like us. So I went through that dilemma. But then I said, you know what? Okay, God, I got you. This is we are one. Not me saying just all us white folks and that's it. And then you came in, and you were a blessing to the Noble Touch as you came in. And I was proud to have you as part of the Noble Touch. But that's the dilemma I went through to begin with. I had to hear God in all this, and not my ego. See, my ego would have kept it all black. And now I've let you in. And made any excuse in the world not to let you in. Because I didn't have to call you and say, hey, listen, there's a space available. I'll tell you that. But once again, because I'm listening. So I'm looking for the guidance. I'm looking for the God in me to tell me what to do. I'm looking at all that stuff, and I'm saying, it was really a dilemma for me. Not because you were white, but because I just thought I was going to create a all black environment where they could feel comfortable, because I didn't feel comfortable. In Prayer and Killing, I didn't feel comfortable. In LP, I didn't feel comfortable. They would go to lunch and everybody would go out and Jeff by himself. Or they would say, you get in the teams, break up, get a partner. Nobody would pick me. I went through that for years. So I was saying, if I ever do anything, black group of people, we're going to be together. They're going to feel like this family instead of feel like they left out all the time. I don't want anyone to go through what I went through. And I tell y'all that all the time. I don't want anybody to go through what I went through. And then God said, ha, 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 ha. You got jokes, Jeff. It's just bigger than you. It's not about you and your little small way of looking at things. Because that's what it was, a small way of looking at things. He said, nope. I'm going to say Nick. Like St. Nicholas. Remember him? And I had to go for that dilemma. And now it's like, since you broke the color barrier, I don't have to go for that anymore. I went through that with you, I don't have to go for that anymore. We got people coming in now from India and all kinds of places coming by here wanting to do healing with us. And we talk about, okay, now what are we going to do now? As far as, do they get PD, they didn't train with us? Or do they not get PDs, they didn't train? They didn't come and serve, but do they get the advantages that people get that were part of the Noble Touch? That they're training with us. Not training with Master Cole, and then you getting the PDs and everything else. So, and that's what we're working through now. Because what's happening is that people are starting to come. Didn't train with us. We got a guy here from London. Comes every Wednesday night now.
Thank you for that. I didn't know that. I appreciate that. And I think that it's a testament to what you've been describing all along, that throughout your life you had to break down these barriers between the barriers of your ego.
Exactly.
Keeping you from your divinity, from accepting it and recognizing.
Yeah. Because you remember you came going through only a white guy? Okay. Right. But yeah, I went through that. I went through that whole dilemma thing. Especially you caused the first dilemma. But once I had to get my ego out the way, get my smaller self, the little G God in me out the way, so I can experience a bigger God by allowing this to be everyone. And Richard Bailey used to tell me that anyway. So I told him I want to learn NLP, take it back to my community. In his quotes, he always says it's for everybody. Although that didn't come in my mind at that time, otherwise I probably would have been easier. But I just said I had to really talk to God about what I was feeling. Even when I had to get rid of people. That was hard for me. That was really, really, really hard for me. I mean, I cry over stuff sometimes, as you know. I cry over stuff. I just don't, I want everyone to want to be part. I want them to be part. I don't want to have to say, listen, you don't fit well, but sometimes you got to make those tough decisions. I mean, I've learned so much. as far as being a leader in this capacity. I really have. It's been a wonderful, wonderful journey. And trying sometimes, it's been hard sometimes. The times you want to quit and you say, let me focus on just building Jeff Noble, the therapist, and to forget about this Noble Touch stuff, because I can make more money just being myself, not worrying about anybody else. But I mean, I can do it. You can do whatever you want. You have free will, but it's not in God's will for me to do that. We just starting now. We're finally on a tarmac. You remember, we didn't have a place. I mean, you've seen the growth of Noble Touch. And now look at it. We're shooting in our place.
Yeah, that's a blessing. So, absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, and that's why it was definitely necessary and essential for me to do this with you, to have the first conversation with you here, because I definitely would not be where I am doing what I am without you.
And without you, I would not be doing what I'm doing, because remember, my mind was set. I don't want to be, when everybody feel what I felt. And that's where I was when you came. I mean, you just, and see, I also knew that God was using you. Because most people, if you say no the first time, and no the second time, and no the third time, they're going to go away. You didn't go away. You just kept asking again and again and again. So I said, okay, that's God wants to do. I'm not listening. Then I heard, maybe the third time we started talking about it, I said, it may be something opening up. I think that's the time I really heard God and you speaking to me about wanting to be there. The first time I didn't hear it, I was like,
I really want to circle into that, back to, I know you said it before, but I feel like this piece is so important. I really want to highlight this for people that may be struggling to see the divinity or hear the divinity in themselves, in others, for not for the people that are closed off to it, for the people that really are open and trying and curious. What are some ways that what are some like tools or things or ways that people can really recognize, like, oh, it's not just you speaking to me, it's not just this person speaking to me, it's not just this bird flying, that it is actually God, it is actually divinity?
first of all, we come familiar with your intuition first, and being able to just test your intuition, whether it's you or whether it's God. Like sometimes someone tells you to do something one way, and sometimes tells you to go another way, and you may go one way, it may have been the bad decision. It may go one way, it may be the right decision. But get in touch with that and then purposely test it. When you get those two things, those two different signals, test it, see, oh, okay, that was wrong. Okay, so, but this one was right. So was there a difference in the distinction of what I heard inside my head? Or was there a distinction in the way I felt it in my gut when I made that decision? What are the distinctions? This is called spiritual discernment. What are the distinctions you make between when you make the right decision and you make the wrong decision? There's something that tells you which way to go, but what's the one that's consistently giving you the right one? Because one of them will give you the right one. If you find out what it is, you can repeat it. It's like when you get up in the morning. Sometimes you get up in the morning, you have that whole day is like set, the most fantastic day you ever had. There are days you get up in the morning, it's like, Jesus Christ, why bother getting about this day? It's like the worst day of your life almost, or it's bad. Not the worst day of your life, but it's bad. If you're the same person, what's the difference? If you're the same person, what's the difference? It has to be something you're doing internally. If you're optimistic, it's something you did internally overnight or whatever it was for you to wake up optimistic. It's just a matter of how you listen. It's a matter of knowing, a knowingness that God can communicate through anything also, through anyone. Just the knowing that, okay, what's the answer I'm looking for? And then being open to how. I've had answers on billboards while I'm driving my car. Okay, I got it. Okay, that's what that means. All right, that relates to this. I try to teach other people how to do it, but it's hard when I try to teach them how to do it because they will say something like, well, what if it's this instead? What if it is that instead? What if it's not that instead? You just blew the opportunity. It'll come back sooner or later, and you'll know whether you blew the opportunity or not. So, but there's no one way because everybody's different. Everybody's process is different. God made us all unique for a reason, and He wants a unique an individual relationship with all of us in his way or her way. Well, it's not really a he or her, it's energy to me anyway. But I think that's what you have to do, is everybody's process is different. What works for me may not work for someone else. What works for me was just being quiet, going inside, just trying to clear as much of my stuff from. We have so much darkness and so many different negative thought forms into these elements, just things in us from past programming, that when we kind of begin to clear that stuff out, you begin to be able to listen differently because you don't have as much congestion. You're not competing with as many thoughts inside your mind. You're more at peace. When you're at peace, you can hear things differently than you can when you're at chaos, because things are running through your mind all the time. So it's a matter of just getting to that place. And I think that one of the most important things we can do is to work to heal ourselves. And that makes a major difference in how well you can begin to hear and in touch with that stuff, because all the other stuff's not in the way anymore. You know, when we did the workshop, and everybody had said they felt a lot lighter, but there were no lighter on the scale. People understand that consciousness has energy. And if it's negative consciousness, you got negative energy, and that negative energy has weight to it, has spiritual weight. Spiritual body has weight also. So they say they feel light, but they dumped all that spiritual weight, all those toxins and negative thought forms, beliefs, and limitations that were dropped. Past experiences, past emotional experiences.
Is there anything that you feel left that you'd like to share?
You know, I always encourage people, tell people that live your dreams, you live in your fears. Either you're living your dreams or your fears. What stops most people are their fears. I don't care if unknown, because a lot of people, hey man, I got friends from some of the best business schools in the world, and they never started a business. School trains you to go work for somebody else most of the time. It's different when you're an entrepreneur. When I was an entrepreneur since I was 24 years old. So I don't even know what it's like to work and have a salary. Never had one. I don't have one now either. If I don't do a healing work, I don't get paid. It's that simple. But I think I always tell people to overcome the fear. Overcome the fear, whether the fear of speaking up, the fear of being seen, the fear of being heard. No, what the fear is, you overcome those fears, your whole world opens up to you. You can operate from a space of freedom, space of power. You're not afraid to be yourself because you let go of that fear. So I always tell people, step from behind the curtains of fear, doubt, and worry, because that's what it is, and allow the Spirit of God to show them more. Whatever that is for you. The universe can be created. Doesn't matter what you call it. That energy that controls everything in your body that you don't think about. Right now, we've been breathing all this time and talking all this time, and we don't even know how we make sense of the word. Think about it. A baby learns to speak a whole language, or 2 or 3 languages, if they're in that environment, without ever picking up a book, without ever listening to a tape. You go learn French now. The books, tapes, everything else. So I tell people all the time, step from behind the curtains of fear, doubt, and worry, and just let God show you off. I always let people know that they were born in the original, so don't die a copy. And the most important thing is that we're the master's piece. Ain't got nothing to do with you, your mama, nobody else. You are the master's piece. That God has something in store for just you. And no one else can bring it to fruition or manifestation on this planet the way you can. And you have an obligation to your soul. Because remember, Earth is the soul playground for evolution. Earth is a soul's playground for evolution. So you have the obligation to your soul that when your physical body decays and goes away, that the stuff you've learned, stuff you've done, goes back to your higher soul. So the next time, if you believe in the next time, you come down even more prepared. And you get to a point after a while where you don't have to come back in physical form, because you have now evolved that much that you just totally. Somebody said to me the other day, I said, we were in a workshop the other day, and I said to this woman, I said, we're talking goal setting. I said, how many of you have been on vacation? Everybody raised their hand. I said, how long have you been planning your vacation? 4 days, a week, whatever. I said, okay. So in other words, you spend more time planning your vacation than planning your life. Because most people don't plan, they spend time planning vacations, but they never sit down and really plan their life the same way. So your vacation is short-term pleasure is more important than long-term gain. So I'm just encouraging people to set goals and go for it.
What I appreciate about this conversation is And one of the challenges of, not necessarily challenges, but one of the obstacles that I'm trying to figure out with this podcast is to talk about the limitations that men experience and the obstacles and challenges that men experience, but then also to move beyond them.
Well, they're self-created. What do you consider obstacles that men run into? If there are most obstacles that men run into are self-created obstacles. Give me an obstacle that man's gonna run into.
Well, like you were saying, that not being able to cry, or having to suppress their emotion.
That's an obstacle. It was set up as an obstacle, perhaps, but obstacle to do what? What's an obstacle stopping you from?
Freely expressing yourself, and then ultimately,
so then it becomes an opportunity to learn to freely express yourself.
Take the obstacle as an opportunity.
Every obstacle is an opportunity. Everyone's opportunity. I mean, to me, a problem is a solution turned inside out. A problem is a solution turned inside out. Because once you solve that obstacle, think of the fun thing about solving obstacles is that you've done enough of them, they become fun. It's like, okay, even one of my processes handling obstacles, you've heard me say this before. Whatever the obstacle is, first thing I do is thank God for the obstacle. So to me, it's an opportunity to grow, to change, to move forward again. It's a stepping stone to greater things. And so then I say, okay, now how many different ways can I overcome this obstacle and enjoy the process? And usually because I'm silly now, and because I've overcome so many obstacles, I'll go to what I think is not going to work. And that's the one I'll do first, just for the fun of it. If I think something's going to definitely work, it's too easy. I've been through so many obstacles now that it's like, okay, this probably won't work. Let me try this first. Then if it don't work, say, okay, go to the next one. We'll go to the next one. And it depends on how much time I have to solve the obstacle also. If it's a shorter period of time, I may not go to the one I think won't work. I may go straight to the one that's going to work. If I have a little wiggle room, I'm going to definitely try the one I think won't work first. That's just the way my brain works. I'm unapologetically Black. You know, some people, they don't want to be, they want to fit in. I don't mind getting along, but I can give less for shit to fit in. I mean, I don't mind getting along, but I'm not going to change who I am just to fit in.
All right, Jeff.
Rooney.
Thank you.